In the preceding video, I talked to you about the idea of encapsulation. Now let's talk about using objects that are attributes of other objects. Okay, so here's a little diagram again with two class diagrams. And I asked the question, is it possible to have classes related as follows? In particular, there is an account class over here, of which we would create an object, and its attributes would contain an account number that's an integer, a float value, a decimal number, which is the account balance, and an object of type account. So that's not a simple variable, that's a complex variable that's an object. And then over here you have an account owner, which has just simply a bunch of strings associated with it. So the question is, can you create an instance of this class and then use it as a variable that gets set over here in the same way that you would set any other attribute? And as the picture here suggests, the answer is yes. So let's go ahead and work through this. Let's go over to Visual Studio Code and start coding this up in JavaScript. Okay, maybe I'll create an additional file here just to make the screen a little cleaner. So I'll say objects2.html, and that's still running, so I'll say stop running. I will create the template for a new page, exclamation point, return, and let's go ahead and put some code over here. I'm gonna close this up a little bit. Okay, so as I'm thinking about that problem that I introduced, there is an account owner and there's an account itself. Which do I need to create first? Well, if account owner is going to be a variable or an attribute of the account, then I need to create the account owner first. Okay, so let's go ahead and type class account owner, and let's create what will become our instance variables. And we have a set of strings here: first name, last name, email, and phone number. So first name, last name, email, and phone number. All right, on this one, I'm going to use a constructor. So I will type in the keyword constructor, and then to create this, I will pass in first name, last name, email, if I can type. All right, and then I'll create my block, and then whenever the constructor is called, I'm going to set these variables with the this keyword. So I'll say this dot as first name equals, and so this one refers to that attribute and this refers to this variable. They're completely separate variables. They just happen to share a similar name. All right, there we go. Now, let's use this class that we have just created. So we'll use our let statement, and I'll call this let the variable be O for object account owner. And it's going to be a new account owner object. And I'll pass in my own information here. So I'll say Dagan Kettles test@email.com, and we'll make up a phone number, 555-5555. Usually when you're reading somebody else's code, creating an object is going to look like this, but because I have a syntax formatter installed, when I hit save, it's going to say, hey, that line was looking pretty long, so I'm going to reformat that a little bit. Okay, my account owner is ready to go, and I can put them into an account. So let me proceed to create a class account and then an instance of that account. So I'll say class account, and these will be my instance variables. I'll have an account number. Here's where the magic happens. I will have an account owner attribute, and I will have an account balance. All right, and let's go ahead and use a constructor. Again, with this one, I'll say constructor. I'll pass in an account number. I'm going to pass in that account owner. I'm going to pass in an account balance. And now I need to do those assignments. So I'll say this dot account number equals this temporary variable that just got passed in. There we go. So my class is set up. I'm ready to use it and create instances of its type. So I'll say let object account, my variable, equal to new account, and then I need to pass in three things. So I'll put in some random number, and rather than putting in something literal right here, I will pass in that variable that I created before, which is O account owner. So I'll say O account owner, and then I need to pass in some amount of money, and I'll say 50. All right, well, we don't know if this has actually worked or not yet, so let's go and find a way to test it. I'm going to do an alert statement, and I'll build it in steps. So I'll say alert, and I'll say the account number is, and I'll reference the variable O account dot notation, and we'll say I account number. All right, let's stop right there for a second and test it. I'll hit save, and then I will click go live. It'll pop up that document. It says the account number is undefined. Okay, what is it that's the problem here that I have done incorrectly? Copy that, copy that. Oh, I've done this on previous days. I used the wrong variable here. So let's go ahead and access the account without a typo. So we hit save, and now we're accessing the right attribute. Okay, so that is working correctly. Let's go ahead and check on that owner now. So I'll say plus, and I'll just kind of do a line return here so that I have a little bit more real estate to work with. And I'll say, and the owner is space, and again, I'll give myself some more real estate. All right, so now I need to access the attribute that's part of this account. So I'll say O account, and then I know that as part of that, there happens to be an O account owner object there that's also an attribute. So O account owner dot, and I can do first name. All right, and I want to see the last name as well. So let's go ahead and add a space, and then I'll say O account dot O account owner dot S last name. All right, let's hit save and see if it worked. All right, the account number is this, and the owner is first name and last name. So thankfully it worked, first and foremost. But secondly, let's just notice what's happened here. When we access the attribute of an object that's relatively simple, like a number, we access it that way using the dot notation. But in this case, we needed to get the attribute of an object that was contained in another object. So again, we're using this dot notation to refer to an attribute of the first object and then an attribute of the second object. Now, if you think ahead, this means that you could have objects that contain objects that contain objects, and so on and so forth. And so if you ever see some line of code that has some name dot some other name dot some other name dot some other name dot some other name, then you could go in your head now and think that through and realize, oh, that's probably a series of objects that are embedded within one another. There's one on the outermost level, like Russian stacking dolls, if you will. And then there's something on the innermost level, and then you're accessing what could either be a property or attribute or a method of that last internal object.